This episode is made possible by Partizan. Almost every single major city in the Philippines has a Uniqlo location. And personally, I love Uniqlo. The simplicity, the price, the quality, it works for me. Now, I'm aware that it's a huge company, and so I wanted to know how it got this big. So in this episode, I'll be talking about the brand origin story of Uniqlo. The man behind Uniqlo's success is its founder, Tadashi Yanai. Yanai is currently the richest man in Japan, so I'm guessing he probably did a couple of things right. Tadashi Yanai was born in Ube, Yamaguchi on February 7, 1949. His father was already in the business of selling clothing, running a clothing store called the men's shop OGORI SHOJI. The store's location was conveniently located in the same building they were living in. The store was on the ground floor, and Yanai and his family were living on the floor above it. Yanai graduated from the WASEDA University in 1971 with a degree in economics and politics. As soon as he finished college, he got a job in the same industry, the clothing industry, but he wasn't working for his father just yet. He was working at a supermarket, selling men's clothing and kitchenware. And while he was there, he was in charge of replenishing stocks on the selling floor. In an interview, Yanai shares how his floor manager at the supermarket would reprimand him often because of what he was wearing. You see, he was the type of person who would come into work wearing a shirt and a pair of jeans, and his manager wanted him to wear a tie. Yanai then questioned the manager as to how wearing a tie is going to help him since he's just there to replenish stocks. I pointed this out because it would give us a glimpse of Uniqlo before it was even launched. Especially since, after only a year at the supermarket, he decided to quit his job. And since he had nowhere else to work at, his father asked him, "Hey, why not just help me out on our store?" And so, he decided to work for his father's clothing store. Yanai was 23 years old when he joined his father's railroad tailoring store. His dad's shop was in the business of selling suits and ties, basically formal wear. And as Yanai spent more and more time working in the business, he found himself enjoying the work, and soon began to realize that running the business was interesting enough for him to continue working there. It's at this point that Tadashi Yanai learned an important lesson, which is to not have any preconceived notion before trying something out. In his case, initially he thought he would hate the family business. Well, it turns out he was actually having fun, and he discovered that he was great at it. You must first try it before you judge it. This lesson may have played a part in something he himself would try out next. By the 1970s, his father's store grew to several locations, reaching 22 by 1984. 1984 is the year he does something different. You see, ever since being reprimanded by his floor manager to wear a tie, and based on how he initially dreaded working for his father's business that sold suits and ties, we consistently see his aversion from formal wear. And because of Yanai's travels to Europe and the US, he discovered the impact that brands such as Gap and Benetton were making. These were large casual apparel chains that focused on non-trendy casual clothing. Gap specifically is known for revolutionizing American retailing when it made basics cool. Simplicity was its edge. Seeing this, Yanai was able to visualize the immense potential that this strategy can have if introduced in Japan's casual wear market. And so, Yanai began drafting plans on evolving the family's business to go from suits to casual wear. In 1984, in Hiroshima, Japan, as soon as he became president of his father's company, he branched out and founded his own clothing brand called the Unique Clothing Warehouse, which would later on be renamed simply as UNICLO. Okay, so before we dive into UNICLO, we have to get something out of the way, and that's as to what the proper pronunciation of UNICLO is. Apparently, in Japanese, you're supposed to pronounce it as UNICLO. But then, I've read that you don't necessarily have to say it the Japanese way, because honestly, asking people for direction saying, "Where is UNICLO?" it just makes you sound like a pretentious douche. So in this episode, we'll just say it in the universally accepted way of saying it in the English-speaking world, which is UNICLO. Regarding the name UNICLO, well, it's just a combination of the words unique clothing. And as for the spelling, apparently, originally, during the registration process of the brand UNICLO in 1988, it was supposed to be spelled as UNICLO with a C, as in UNICLO. But the staff in charge of registration misread the letter C as the letter Q. And seeing that the unexpected error wasn't actually that bad and that it was actually nice, well, they stuck with it. And that's how we've arrived at the brand name iconic Uniqlo with a letter Q. When Uniqlo was starting, Yanai made it a priority to focus on non-trendy clothing. Casual wear mostly, ones that are not expensive but are made of high quality fabrics. And you know what happens when you sell high quality products at a low price? Well, you get growth. By 1991, he renamed his father's store OGORI SHOJI to Fast Retailing and was listed in the Hiroshima Stock Exchange in 1994. In April of 1993, 9 years from launch, Uniqlo had over 100 stores in Japan, and this would reach 200 by 1996. Initially, Uniqlo's brand was hit with the problem of being classified as a discount store brand. Well, that's until Uniqlo opened a 3-story shop in the iconic Harajuku district in central Tokyo in 1998. As the years went by, the high quality and low price point of Uniqlo's products didn't go unnoticed. Uniqlo's model worked incredibly well in Japan. Everything that Uniqlo does is encapsulated in one single message. Uniqlo is a modern Japanese company that inspires the world to dress casual. The brand has chosen to completely ignore the need to chase or create rising trends, which is what their main rivals Zara and H&M are known for. Uniqlo believes that it transcends the many ways people are categorized, be it by age, gender, or ethnicity. And this is summed up in their brand positioning statement, made for all. Part of the appeal of Uniqlo is the discovery of a market who want to look good and feel good, but don't necessarily want to broadcast how much their clothes cost. Unlike brands of clothing that people wear as a signal of wealth, unless you ask someone if they're wearing something from Uniqlo, it's hard to know since there is no visible brand mark or logo on the exterior. The clothes are simple essentials that are comfortable and universal, but don't undermine the simplicity of Uniqlo's products because a lot of innovation was involved in the making of their clothes. Tadashi Yanai has explicitly shared that Uniqlo is a technology consumer retail company. The brand consistently innovates on new fabric that is developed in-house. Whereas Zara and H&M differentiate themselves through the sophistication of design, Uniqlo prides itself with signature innovations that improve functional performance of each piece of fabric. One example is their heat tech fabric. Imagine if you could stay warm during the winter without wearing bulky clothing. The answer was the heat tech fabric. This lightweight fabric absorbs the moisture that your body emits and then generates enough heat to warm your body. The heat-tech fabric required years of development and over 10,000 prototypes. And that's not all. Another example is the brand's Ultra Stretch jeans, which, unlike normal jeans which are harder, Uniqlo's Ultra Stretch jeans are unusually soft, designed to have a snug fit without sacrificing the look and feel of normal jeans. These fabric innovations is a result of Uniqlo's partnership with TORAY Industries, a Japanese chemical company. Yanai refers to Uniqlo and TORAY as one company, even though technically that isn't the case. Both companies work hand in hand in developing new technology that disrupts the apparel space. Their goal is to continue to improve the clothing production process into one that is less wasteful, looks better, and have greater functionality. And so far, everything seems to be working out well for both companies. And in fact, their partnership is on its 18th year. Unlike Zara, whose success is built on its ability to quickly respond to fast-changing fashion trends and being able to get products from the factory to each location in around 2 weeks, Uniqlo plans its wardrobe essentials up to a year in advance. And in the case of Zara, where the focus is on selling a large variety of trendy clothing inspired by what's hot from the global runway, Uniqlo produces only a few styles of practical basics each year, in order to ensure that their product development team is aware of how the end consumer actually responds to the products they develop. This same product development team is also assigned to handle customer concerns. This gives the team first-hand information on how the products they made can be further improved. And to top it off, product development teams and marketing teams are involved in strategy and execution. Having this level of synergy between different departments requires a company culture that encourages teamwork. And to ensure this, Uniqlo exceeds the global industry average when it comes to the training period of each new employee, reaching up to 3 months. During this training period, new employees are fully assimilated into the company culture and are taught the concept of Kaizen, which is the pursuit of perfection. Interestingly, in every Uniqlo manager's office, there reportedly is a poster that says, "Always follow company direction, do not work in your own way." During the training period, they're taught how things are done in Uniqlo. This includes the way they fold apparel. Employees are supposed to be able to fold 6 shirts in under a minute. The way they return the credit card to customers, which is supposed to be with both hands and full eye contact. And how to properly interact with customers, which is with eye contact and a smile. New employees' activities are recorded and analyzed during this period. It also says here that they use 6 standard phrases. And to become a star Uniqlo advisor, which is what they call the staff on the sales floor, you're supposed to recite at least 4 of the 6 phrases to each customer who walks through the door. It's a bit excessive, but I guess if that's what it requires to be as big as Uniqlo, then I guess it's fine. Uniqlo implements a couple of ways to communicate what the brand stands for. Initially, they relied solely on TV commercials as its primary means of advertising. Today, the company understands that every single touchpoint with a customer is an opportunity to reinforce what Uniqlo is all about. For instance, try to remember the feeling you get when you enter a Uniqlo store. Ever notice how massive each Uniqlo location is? Well, that's because, as I mentioned earlier, the brand does not roll out thousands of new designs each time. And so, since the number of designs it produces are limited, the in-store environment is intentionally designed to not make customers feel that options are lacking. As a result, that's how each Uniqlo location has wide aisles, bright lights, neatly stacked shelves, and a minimalist design. Stacking shelves from floor to ceiling is an intentional move to create the illusion of choice, making you feel that there is plenty to choose from. It's amazing, really. You enter a Uniqlo location and you just think, wow, this looks nice, without realizing that every corner of the store is there for a reason. That there is a team in charge of doing just that, of making sure that every experience within the store delivers on what Uniqlo is all about. Now, you may have noticed that I have been mentioning Zara and H&M here a lot because, well, Uniqlo considers those two as their biggest rivals. As of 2019, Spain's Inditex, which is the mother company of Zara, is currently the #1 fashion retailer with sales of up to $28.6 billion. As of October 2019, news hit that Fast Retailing, the company that owns Uniqlo, has finally surpassed Sweden's H&M with sales of up to $21.3 billion. Meanwhile, H&M registered sales of up to $21.2 billion. And so, with a gap of $200 million, H&M drops from second place for the first time since it got there in 2015. The company has always made it a goal to become the world's largest clothing retailer by 2020, and this largely depends on whether its expansion to the US, China, and online markets are successful. Before we dive into Uniqlo's struggles in the US, we first need to take a look at how many stores Uniqlo has in other countries. This will help you compare the success in other countries versus how they're doing in the United States. Well, as of December 2019, according to Fast Retailing's website, Uniqlo has a total of 2,249 stores worldwide. Unsurprisingly, 817 of these is in Uniqlo's home country, Japan. The brand's second biggest store count belongs to China with 738 locations. Next in third is South Korea with 186 locations, followed by Taiwan with 68 and the Philippines with 61. Despite its huge consumer market, the brand only has 52 locations in the United States. You see, the brand is strong in Asia, but not so much in the United States and even in Europe. In Europe, including the UK, Uniqlo only has 100 locations, with Russia leading the pack with 41 stores, France with 24, and the UK with 15. I mean, compare that to the 223 in Southeast Asia, led by the Philippines with 61 and Malaysia and Thailand with 51 each. Obviously, it's been challenging for Uniqlo to replicate its success in Asia in the US and Europe market. For instance, in the UK, Tadashi Yanai describes with good humor the devastating entry of Uniqlo, where in 2001, Uniqlo entered the UK by opening 20 locations, most of them outside London. This move marked the beginning of their international expansion. The brand reached its peak at 23 stores, but unfortunately, Uniqlo's model in Japan did not translate well in the UK, and in only 18 months, all but 5 stores remained. I figure that maybe other brands are suffering the same fate as well, but not so much. H&M entered the UK in 1967 and now has over 300 locations. So yeah, in comparison, this truly was devastating for Uniqlo. In the case of Uniqlo's entry in the United States, well, it's not as bad as what happened in the UK, but it's not entirely great either. Uniqlo entered the US in 2011, opening 3 stores in New York and 1 in San Francisco. At that time, Uniqlo announced their goal of having 200 stores in the US and sales of $10 billion by 2020. Well, in 2019, sadly, they only have 52 locations so far. One issue was the brand's unwillingness to adjust the sizes and fitness of their products. American customers on average are taller than Japanese shoppers, but Uniqlo didn't make the proper adjustments on time and ended up closing several stores within a year. Also, competition has been fierce, especially with the success of Zara and H&M. Both have been thriving in the US. Both brands' ability to rapidly produce trendy products have worked well for them so far. Uniqlo's Essential Basics, on the other hand, is taking a bit more time to maneuver the market. But then, there is hope for Uniqlo. You see, Uniqlo has similarities with US-based Gap Inc. As I mentioned earlier, the brand revolutionized American fashion by making basics cool. But now, Gap no longer makes an impact and now has been suffering from plummeting sales. Despite this, Uniqlo has something that the Gap has lost. Gap had a strong brand before it expanded too rapidly to every corner of the US. This caused it to lose its edge. Uniqlo, on the other hand, speaks the millennial language. The rise of brands like Everlane and Warby Parker is proof that there is a rising market for consumer preference for high-quality products that function well without breaking the bank. As Gap declines and Uniqlo rises, Uniqlo has the opportunity to inherit the Gap empire without repeating its mistakes. Uniqlo will need to establish that you can buy clothes that are affordable but are not disposable. And so far, Uniqlo has been slowly associating itself with aesthetically pleasing products with a reputation for durability. Fast retailing has made other moves to conquer the US market, and that's by acquiring brands that have a stronger brand presence in the country. They did this by acquiring the clothing brand Theory in 2003 and 80% of J-Brand in 2012. Theory now has 458 stores as of 2019. And learning from past mistakes, Uniqlo also has a new strategy to penetrate the more upscale US and European market. To combat Zara and H&M's trendy products, Uniqlo has begun collaborating with designers to create unique styles. They've since tapped designer Alexander Wang to create a 5-piece dress collection. And other collabs include French designer Christophe Lemaire, Russian-American designer Alexander Plokov, and German fashion designer Jill Sander. Collaborating with designers is giving Uniqlo quicker access into markets where brand awareness is weaker, especially in the US and Europe. The company's expansion in those markets are supported by its success in Asia, except for one recent hiccup that's pulling Uniqlo sales down. Political turmoil is hurting Uniqlo sales in Hong Kong because of the protests, and in the case of Korea, the nationwide boycott against the Japanese products and services is affecting Uniqlo. Apparently, the relationship of Seoul and Tokyo are at its worst in decades due to sensitive issues that date back to the Japanese Empire's occupation of the Korean peninsula from 1910 to 1945 during the World War II years. This has also raised tensions between the two nations, and to make matters worse, Uniqlo ran a commercial featuring Iris Apfel, a 97-year-old American-style icon. In the commercial, Apfel was asked by 12-year-old fashion designer Carius Rogers. Rogers asked Apfel how she used to dress when she was a teenager. Apfel then responds by saying that she couldn't remember that far back. So apparently, this is the literal translation. But the version of this commercial that aired in South Korea carried subtitles which said, "Gosh, how can I remember something that goes back 80 years? At first glance, it seems harmless, right? Well, far from it. Because apparently, 80 years ago is around 1910. The Empire of Japan, You know, that empire, the one that ruthlessly invaded almost all of Asia during World War II. Yeah, that Japan was not the best version of Japan. And in the case of Korea, there are a lot of horror stories of how this Japan treated them during wartime. And so, naturally, South Koreans see this as present-day Japan mocking wartime labor and comfort women. This Uniqlo commercial is basically poking fun and reopening deep wounds from Japan's colonial past. Immediately, Uniqlo pulled the commercial out, but the damage has been done. And it is hurting Uniqlo sales because South Korea is one of its biggest markets. It's actually very impressive how South Koreans are united in this move to boycott Japanese products and services, Uniqlo included. Uniqlo posted a 3.3% drop on the year-on-year consolidated revenue. Sales plummeted by up to 70% during the last week of July. However, according to the financial statements of Uniqlo, if you remove the losses of South Korea and Hong Kong, they actually generated first quarter revenue and profit, all thanks to Indonesia and the Philippines. Both are especially strong performers with double-digit growth in same-store sales. And so, you're welcome, Uniqlo. But anyway, I'm sure they'll recover from this. I mean, I hope so, because I love Uniqlo. And today, Tadashi Yanai, the man behind Fast Retailing, the parent company of Uniqlo, is the richest man in Japan and 41st richest in the world with a net worth of $22.2 billion as of 2019. Fast Retailing is the biggest fashion retailer in Asia and second in the world behind Inditex. Yanai and family still currently owns a 44% stake in the company. The next challenge for Tadashi Yanai is succession. In the making of this episode, he's 70 years old. His two sons were nominated to be part of the board, but neither are slated to take over his post. Yanai shared in an interview that he would prefer to be succeeded by a woman, pointing out that women are more persevering, detail-oriented, and have an aesthetic sense. Well, let's see what happens next. I do hope it works out well for Uniqlo. And that's about it. Now you know the brand origin story of Uniqlo. If you like this video, be sure to check out our other videos. They're about the origin stories of brands. And if you enjoy this show, it would mean a lot if you can tell your friends about brand origins. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so you can say hi to us there as well. My name is Chris. I'll catch you again next time for another episode of Brand Origins.